In this presentation, we are going to talk about the stranding response, data, and sample collection. My name is Gabriela Hernández Mora, and I work for the Veterinary Microbiology Unit at SENASA-Costa Rica. And here is a summary of the stranding response overview. When we have stranded animals, we have three scenarios. First, if the animal is alive, stranded on shore. Second, alive in near shore. And third, if the animal is dead. If the animal is alive stranded offshore, we need to assess the animal condition and field conditions. We can refloat, we can rehabilitation, or we can apply euthanasia. If we decide for refloat, the individual must be able to stand alone. We need to make monitoring, keep the public at a distance, monitor location and behavior at the surface, and public engagement may be mobilized. If we decide for rehabilitation, we need specific logistic equipment and resources are needed. We can make first aid, assessment of vital signs, evaluate the stranding costs, we need transportation, a time to recovery, and then release. If we decide for euthanasia, this decision is taken when there are no available options to improve the quality of life of the individual. The procedure must be implemented in the absence of the public and, if needed, resources, expertise, and material are available. If the animal is alive in the near shore, we need to monitoring, keep the public at a distance, monitor location and behavior at the surface. We need public engagement may be mobilized. If the animal is dead, we need to assess the decomposition state. We need to collect data and samples. We need to use standard protocols, being mindful of biosafety, specific logistic equipment and resources are needed. And then carcass disposal depends on available logistic and field conditions. The contents of this presentation includes the stranding response preparation, data collection, how to respond to a live stranding, tips for unusual stranding events, the necropsy, communicate to the public on site and the media, and further resources. We are going to start with the stranding response preparation. First, we are going to talk about the legal concerns. Marine mammals are protected by law in most countries. A trained cetacean stranding response network needs to be well established, within compliance of the country legal framework and with a clear description of the authority responsible for cetacean incidents and their partners within a chain of command. Also, they need operating procedures and need to be described the role of all parties involved. Also, they need a register of contacts for expertise and equipment. Also, a list of laboratories and scientists to send the collected biosamples. Also, they need a protocol for cetacean handling, biosample collection, and transport following the national procedures and legislations that include the legal permit procedure to transport cetacean biosamples in and out of the country. And now we are going to talk about the communication with informant, key features. The first question includes who is reporting. The informant contact details, we need that. Where? The location of the stranding in the water or on the land, town, name of the beach, landmarks on the shore and access road. Site description. It is a sandy or rocky coast. Accessibility on foot or for vehicles and exposure to the tide. Is there photos? Request photograph of the entire animal for identification and to assess the general condition of the animal. Explain about the health risk, on the benefit of reporting, the role of the stranding network, and what will happen to the animal, and of course, thank them. Then we need to talk about the species key identification features. It has teeth or baleen, numbers of blowhole, 1 or 2, body length, body shape, is it sleek or rounded, head, rostrum shape, is it flat, pointed, round, thick. Is their ventral growths are absent or present? The dorsal fin features, height, location, and shape. What is the size of the pectoral flipper? The shape, the color. Is notch present? And what about the color patterns? The head, the body, the belly, the tail, the fluke. Then the number of animals. Of course, this is really important. It is alive or dead. It is a cetacean, a seal, or manatee. And what about the state of decomposition? Now we're going to talk about the materials that you need. In general, we can say that the quality of the information depends on the size, skill, organization, interest of the team, good protocols, available of equipment and supplies, numbers of animals to be examined, amount of time available, good labeling of samples, and care in shipping and storing samples. For transporting the samples, we need coolers with ice packs or ice. Once in the laboratory, we need a freezer that could be -20 centigrades or -80 centigrades. We need biosafety equipment to wear even for data collection. We need protective masks, disposable latex gloves, heavy rubber gloves, safety glasses, overalls or disposable clothes, ideally, disposable overshoes, first aid kit, soap and fresh water, cone, poles, and tape to secure the perimeter. And for data collection material, we need stranding and sampling forms, name and contact information of regional marine mammal life stranding, and necropsy experts available to remote assist, kitchen paper, camera, clipboard, pencils with refills and eraser, and plastic measuring tape and ruler. For sampling material, we need permanent markers, plastic small bags, sharp stainless steel knives, knife sharpener, stainless steel scissors, small metal saw, pruners, flathead screwdriver, surgical blades, syringe, saw, sterile swab sticks, a large tarp. And critical material for tissue sampling include garden plastic bags, Ziploc bags, aluminum foil, permanent markers, labels, bufferant formalin 1 or 2 gallons, that must be buffer 10%, plastic tubes, vials or different volumes, string, ethanol at 95% for DNA samples and parasites, and 70% alcohol. Always bring the first aid kit. Of course, you must wear protective equipment like masks, gloves, glasses, disposable clothes, and shoes, even for data collection. And now let's talk about biosafety. During collection, transportation, and postmortem examination of the animal, the potential biological and chemical residues are risk to the environment and public health. They need to be assessed and mitigated. Fluid leakage, noxious odors, and aerosols can leak from carcasses. There are safety precautions and biosafety procedures to protect the responders against injury and zoonotic diseases, infection by pathogenic organisms through aerosols, ingestions, or direct contact transmission. Always avoid the tail swing area and the mouth, bite and beak area, and turn your head away from the blowhole when the cetacean exhales. Always wear personal protective equipment, including masks, gloves, glasses, disposable clothes, and shoes. Have an adequate drinking water and protection from sun, wind, cold, and rain. Have a list of all chemicals, including fixatives and preservatives, and their safety measures and chemical spill treatment kit. Place used knives, blades, needles, equipment in a disposal receptacle. Could be a plastic bottle. Wear ideally double gloves, face mask, goggles, or splash shield, overalls, and booties. Maintain a good hygiene. Wash well with detergent or 70% of alcohol. Disinfect all cuts with iodine or alcohol. Cover sharp bones fragments. After use, disinfect all instrument, equipment, tables, and floor with broad-spectrum disinfectant, for example, alcohol at 70%, Virkon, Besfen, and LPH. Also, for floors, you can use chloride at 1 to 3%. And now, let's talk about coordination with external services. The attention of these cases of stranded animals will include witnesses on the beach, then a call, either 911 or to the official veterinary services or the veterinary faculty, coast guards, aquariums, wildlife services, police, or municipalities. Get external help when necessary. contact the police or the military service to handle public, contact the service in charge of the carcass disposal, contact the maritime service if a boat is needed, and call a stranding expert for advice. And now, let's talk about data collection. First, information to collect. The case need a field stranding ID that must include the name or number, the species, and the date. The name and the agency of the field data documenter and their phone and email. Discovery date of a specimen and by whom. Discovery location, description, and coordinates. We need to describe the type of stranding, if it's a single stranding, incidental stranding, boat collision, mass stranding, mother and calf, capture, or mass stranding, and important the number of animals. Identify the species of the specimen and certainty of identification. Information on site. And here is some basic information that we need to collect on site. The date of discovery of the animal, the time of discovery, how was the weather. It was offshore human or predator activity. How was the tide conditions? Location, latitude, longitude. Is there logistic available? Who is the reporting source? What about the animal? The size? Is there photos? Do you know the species? And number of animals. This photo is real. There, in the circle, is the stranded cetacean. So we need to ask the access to the animal. It is in a river, in a estuary. How about the beach conditions? If there is predators nearby. And this is really important. Wash the animal before examination and taking photos. Then establish the condition of the animal. It is alive, so then it's code 1. If it's code 2, it's fresh death. The organs are in good condition. The code 3 is moderate decomposition, decompose basically intact organs. The code 4 is advanced decomposition of non-recognizable organs. And code 5, the animal is mummified, so only the mummified or skeleton exists. The general condition of the animal must be established. The first photo shows an emaciated animal where you can see actually the ribs and the animal is really thin. The second photo is non-emaciated animal, is in good health, in good shape, and the ribs are not visible. How we know the sex of the animal? Males have 2 slits, a long one and a small one separate by the perineum. Females only have 1 long slit, and in the inner part there is separation between the genitalia and the anal slit. But outside has 2 other parallel slits, the mammary slits. Some males may have mammary slits, such as siphidae or blue whales. For the external observations, we also want to know if there is evidence of entanglement with fishing gear, propeller strike, vessel or predator strike, if there's hematomas, predator attack, if it's a shark or bite mark, if the animal is bleeding, if it has old or fresh scars, skin lesions like the one in the photo, parasites, and missing parts. So, it is important to use tags with the name, date, or number of the case, and scale. You can put a ruler or an object of known dimensions. You need to take photos of anything interesting in the environment or on the carcass. We need to take photos of the entire carcass at the discovery location, right and left flank, dorsal side, ventral side, dorsal fin, both sides, genital area, front and right and left side of the head, right and left flipper, dorsal and ventral side of the fluke, and scars, wounds, or entanglements. And here is a summary of the photos to take. First, the initial photo must be of the complete body before moving the animal and the background. Then the left and right side of the complete animal. Then the left head and right head and blowhole. Then look for the teeth or baleen. Then take a photo of the dorsum, back of the complete animal if possible. Then the dorsal fin. Look for any detail. Then the ventral part, the belly of the complete animal if possible. Then the genital area. Then the fluke. And then pectoral flipper. Take both together and then each separate. Look for wounds or mark. There is special measurement under the 15 number and 16 number of a big whales, which you need to take picture of the through grooves, and in the case of the whales, you need to take pictures of the through grooves and try to photograph the number and the extension. For forensic investigation, use a site reference. You can use a ruler, like the one that you see here in the photo, but also if you don't have these, you can use an object of unknown size. For example, a plastic bottle of a sandal from a collaborator. If you have a ruler, you can make one of these, like you can use it for write and then erase and use it again. But these must be completed with a consecutive number, a name, and the species. So during the time, over time, you may have a lot of collection of photos and you need to know which one are from which case. And now let's talk about morphometric measurements. And here are some basic measurements in stranded cetaceans. Let's start with the very basic, which is the total length. This, you must take it from the snout to the fluke notch, then from the snout to the tip of the dorsal fin. Then the third one is from the snout to the anterior insertion of the dorsal fin. The fourth is from the snout to the center of the eye, then from the snout to the blowhole, then from the snout to the angle of the mouth, then from the snout to the melon, and then from the snout to the anterior insertion of the flipper. The ninth is the snout to the center of genital apertura. The 10th is the snout to the center of the anus. The 11th is the flipper length, then the flipper wide, the fluke wide, the dorsal fin height, and then we're going to take some girth at the axillary level, the maximum girth, we need to specify the location, and the girth at the anus. Then we're going to take the blubber thickness at the dorsal, lateral, and ventral side. And now let's talk about basic measurements in the stranded manatee. The first one is the tip from the snout to the tip of the fluke. Then the tip of the snout to the external ear. Then tip of the snout to center of the eye. Then the center of the eye to the ear. Then the distance between center of the eyes. Then the center of the eye to the center of the nostril from the same side. Then from the tip of the snout to the anterior insertion of the flipper. Then the tip of the snout to the center of the umbilicus. Then the tip of the snout to the center of the genital aperture. Then the tip of the snout to the center of the anus. Maximum wide of the flipper, flipper length, anterior insertion to tip wide, flipper length, axilla to tip, and then fluke wide. Then base of the fluke to posterior tip, then maximum wide of the fluke, then the girth at the fluke base, then the girth at the anus, then the girth at umbilicus, and then the girth at axilla. And then again, we need to know the thickness of the skin, dorsal, lateral, and ventral. And now, we need to define if the animal is dead or alive. We need to know if the animal is alert and responsive or is extremely weak, comatose, and dead shortly after grounding. Is the animal breathing? Depends on the species. Odontoceti and Mysticeti have the differences. We need to know about respiratory rate. For small cetaceans, dolphins, and porpoises, 2 to 5 breaths per minute is normal. If the animal has 6 to 10 breaths in a minute, it's considered mild stress or respiratory compromise. If the animal has more than 10 breaths, it's considered that has a severe stress or respiratory compromise. If it's a medium or large cetacean, the normal per minute is 1 breath, for example, pilot well. And mysticets can be more than 1 breath per minute. That's considered normal. There are some tips to know if the animal is dead or alive. First, we need to see if it's flashing with water contact. The animal have vent movements, tail movements. The animal have resistance to open the mouth. Of course, this is not recommended because it's dangerous. The animal can bite us. The animal presents resistance to manipulate the tongue or fins. Again, these are not recommended. Remember, cetaceans are wild animals, so they can hit you with the tail or bite. And this is really important to remember all the time. What about heart rate? The normal rate is 60 to 70 beats per minute. If it's higher, the animal is in stress. Increase indicates deterioration in the health of the animal. How to calculate that? As you can see here on the left, you can put your hand here in the middle of two flippers and the two pectoral flippers and feel it and count it per minute. If the flippers, dorsal fin or tail are hotter than the flanks, the animal is stressed and needs to rest. You need to stop what are you doing and let the animal rest at least 20 to 30 minutes and then continue. Cetaceans normally produce mucus tears to protect their eyes from the salt water. When they are out of the water, the mucus accumulates. They don't have an eye infection. And now let's talk on how to respond to a live animal stranding. Prepare for intervention. Verify whether the animal is alive if it exhales air from the blowhole and movements. Evaluate the condition of the animal. Evaluate the feasibility of refloating operation, accessibility of the site and the sea, available resources, condition of the animal, if it can be assessed by a vet ideally. Determine and mobilize the needed resources, including response team, medicine, vehicles, swimming pool, equipment, and machinery. And here are some questions that we need to make on the field to make that better decision, whether we need to release the animal or decide for rehabilitation or use euthanasia or let a natural death. We need to ask if there is logistic support available, yes or no. How many animals, few or many. Environment conditions, what about the temperature or the sea state? Is it moderate or extreme? What about beach conditions, are favorable or difficult? What about the animal condition? The time since stranding is really important. If it's brief, we can think about release. If it's long, we need to think about natural death or euthanasia. Animal health, is it good or poor? What about the age? Is it young but independent, or is it old animal? What about the risk to wild population? Is it low or high? And the risk to human safety, is low or high? The animal is easy to handle. What about the size? If it's a small animal, we can think about release. And if it's large, we need to think about euthanasia. And what about the disposition of the animal? Is it calm or is it uncontrollable? What about care facilities? Are there care facilities nearby? And most important of all, is there resources available for treating the animal? So this is like a tree of decision that help us to take the best decision on the field. Evaluate the condition of the live animal from visual external assessment, visual biohealth assessment, and when possible, take a blood sample. The visual biohealth assessment could be done in the water on beach. So in the water, you can record the movement manner, drifting horizontal sideways, drifting vertical, sinking, repetitive circle formation, repetitive beach approach. If the animal is on the beach, we can record breathing intervals, mucus at blowhole, blood in the blowhole, mouth or anus. This is important. Get the animal in a comfortable position. Act calmly, limit crowding and noise pollution. If the event takes place or extends overnight, avoid the use of direct lights and flashes towards the animal. Place the animal on its stomach. Keep its skin moist with gentle pouring water and protect it from sun with a wet towel. Protect its blowhole from sand and water splashes. Dig water trenches under the pectoral fins. On hard substrates, isolate the animal using a tarpaulin, towels, or mattress. And now we are going to describe some important things that we need to know and what to do. So make as little noise as possible. Less number of people is better. If necessary, help him to float. Keep the animal from going into shock. Communication between collaborations to make silence and control the scene. And now, what not to do. Do not stand near the head or the tail. Do not cover or pour water into the blowhole, the dorsal part of the head. And you always wear mask. Do not touch it more than necessary. Do not press or push the fins, tail, or head. As you can see here in this CT scan image, there is no bones of the dorsal fin or the tail, and the articulation in the pectoral flippers are really complicated, so you need to be careful of it. Here is a clear image of why we don't need to press or push the fins, tail, or head. Teamwork. This is really important in this live stranding response. We need a team working with the animal, which will make maximum silence, few people around, acting calm, quiet, and avoiding sudden movements. There is another people or another person that is in charge of the press, and there is another people that need to remove the public. What about the transport? So you need to keep attention to sudden movements, be aware of the flippers, the head, and restrain the tail to avoid injuries. Move the animal preferably using a soft stretcher or tarpaulin. Remember to systematically protect it from the sun. Make sure that the animal does not tip over by stabilizing the body using roller towels or foam blocks. Do not thaw or drag the animal by its tail or handle it by the pectoral fins. Consider moving the animal to another side that is more suitable for refloating. All the time, remember about safety of your personnel. So it's better if you work with sun, daytime, and low tide. Let's talk about refloating. So you need to carry the animal into water deep enough to support its weight and keep it at the surface, with a blowhole and dorsal fin upright position until this animal reacclimatizes, when it breathes normally and its tail moves. Try to be calm to avoid stressing the animal. This maneuver should ideally be performed with a minimum number of people to handle the weight and size of the animal safely. If a boat is available, take the animal at least 1 nautical mile from the coast. Otherwise, take the animal beyond the surface area. Once it reacclimatizes, release the sling once when it's clear that the animal can keep itself upright and swim. In the case of cow-calf pair or other small groups, 2 to 3 individuals, you need to refloat them at the same time. If the animal is stranded again, it is probably too weak and will die soon. In this case, a choice needs to be made between letting the nature take its course or euthanasia intervention. Whenever this option is legally available, euthanasia intervention must always be assessed and performed by a veterinarian. Some euthanasia medication result in a prolonged agony or increased excitement in cetaceans, different to terrestrial animals, and therefore selected medication should be consulted. Large dead cetacean and mass strandings. It is essential to determine and mobilize and coordinate the need, resources, people, equipment, and machinery. Organize an information meeting with all the participants before the start operation and assign specific roles to each person or groups. Coordinate with external resources, such as service in charge of the carcass cutting, large animal, and disposal. Appoint a field coordinator to be in charge of guiding operations. Make sure all interveners wear dedicated protective equipment. For mass strandeds, the priority is always to refloat first all the animals that are alive. Once this is done, the standard management and examination of the stranding can be considered and organized. Experiences in mass stranding events in New Zealand have shown that refloating mothers and calves first is more effective than first refloating males or lonely individuals to return the rest of the group. Therefore, if possible, give priority to mother and calves. For large dead animals, take precautions against exposure to putrefaction gas when opening the carcass, and establish a safety perimeter of at least 100 meters for maneuvering of machinery. And now, let's talk about the necropsy. And we will start before the necropsy, what we need. There is some recommendation. First, do not open the animal until you know there will be available way to bury or dispose the carcass. Whenever possible, as long as the size and the weight allow it, move the carcass to a site sheltered from the public, convenient for the necropsy and accessible to rendering services. Always secure a perimeter around the carcass. All members of the necropsy team must wear dedicated protective clothing, boots, gloves, glasses, and masks, ideally N95. Identify a coordinator for the necropsy team, usually the most experienced in the site, and assign a role to all other team members. There is some recommendation of coordinate with external services of when the necropsy will be completed so that they can organize the disposal of the carcass. Communicate with the public present outside on the stranding network objectives and warn about the health risk. Ask them to respect a safe distance and keep pets away. Be prepared and responsive for the questions of the media. State only facts in non-technical language and avoid speculation to prevent misunderstanding or misinformation. If the necropsy is done in the field, make sure you have the personnel or machinery to make a hole in the sand deep enough for proper burial. For small animals less than 3 meters, the hole must be at least 1 meter larger than the side of the animal with a depth of 1.5 meters. In the case of a larger animal, the hole must be at least 2 meters larger than the size of the animal and with a depth of no less than 3 meters. Remember that each animal has invaluable information on its population. Therefore, if you are willing to perform a necropsy, please be as detailed as possible. All the samples should be placed in separate plastic bags and should be labeled with stranding ID with permanent marker and the container, plus a label inside the container. Choose one person with legible and good handwriting. This person ideally should be the clean person through the process. Prepare the sampling bags before starting the sample collection. The knife edge is lost with sand and the animal skin. Therefore, try to find one person that sharpened the knives through the process. Put the animal on the right or left side and open the carcass. Develop the same routine to open the animals. Then, take a photo and samples from each organ possible and store them individually. Put the animal on ice. This is really important, especially if the necropsy will not be immediate. You can put also the animal on the freezer. And now let's talk about after the necropsy. Leave the site clean and collect all biological waste in bags to be sent for rendering. Ideally, the bags should be identified as biohazard. Sharp things like surgical blades should be in a sealed container that could be a plastic bottle or a specific container for sharp objects. The carcass must be eliminated by rendering. Be aware that the selected rendering is not for animal food preparation. If the circumstances do not allow it, the carcass must be buried as described before. If it is a rocky beach without sand and machinery cannot enter, the animal must be either be taken far enough out to sea. Respond to the media through the appropriate channels. In many cases, environmental authorities must control the flow of information and draft a press release. This is very important in case of an unusual event. Do not send photos or stranded information to social media or media. Send the stranding and sample sheets as well as the photographs to the organization in charge of coordinating the stranding network. Overview of samples to collect. And now let's take an overview of the dolphin internal anatomy. Let's start with the melon, and then the blowhole, the brain, the esophagus, the thoracic arterial plexus, the aorta, the lung, the diaphragm, the spleen, the adrenal gland, the vasculature structure, the ureter, the utero-ovarian plexus, the vestigial pelvic bone, the rectum. And now let's talk about the tongue, the mandibular fat body, the larynx, the trachea, the carotid artery, the subclavian artery, the aortic arch, the heart, the liver, the main stomach, the forestomach, and the pyloric stomach, the intestine, the kidneys, the ovary, the uterus, the bladder, the vagina, the anus, and then the ureter, the rectum, the ductus deferens, and the prostate in the case of males, the epididymis, the testis, the bladder, the penis, and the retractor muscle, and then the anus. And then in the tail, we're going to find the vascular structure. How to start a necropsy? First, incise the skin and blubber according to the cutting plan. Then, disinsert the scapula, pass under the scapula, cutting all the adhesions. Incise down the joint and sever it. This allows the removal of the scapula and pectoral. Then, section and remove the ribs. Then, remove the abdominal muscle from the entire back by cutting the adhesions. And from the diaphragm, incise the muscle to the envelope enclosing the abdominal organs. And here, there is some basic sampling protocol. Remember, you can take samples from every organ, but if you don't have the support to do it, you can make this basic sampling protocol. First, you need to take teeth sample, but first you need to count the total teeth and empty sockets and collect 4 to 5 teeth from the middle part of the jaw. They can be frozen or let them dry and put them in a clear bag or jar. Then you can collect the skull. Skull can be preserved by different methods. If collected, try to get a brain and cerebrospinal fluid samples. Those are really important. Then take a sample of the skin, blubber, and muscle. Cut a square of 5 by 5 centimeters using a knife or blade and tweezers and separate them. The samples for formalin should have maximum 1 centimeter thick. The alcohol could be 70%, ideally 95%. And as said before, even vodka and gin works. They can be frozen directly. Blubber ideally should be wrapped first with aluminum paper foil and then put it in a bag. External parasites, you can storage them in alcohol at room temperature or frozen. Then, complete blood. These can be collected ideally intracardiac until 16 hours after death. For serum, deposited in red cap blood tubes. Swabs. The sterile swabs from the blowhole, oral, ocular, and anal can be collected for disease diagnosis. Then you can collect the eye. Both eyes can be collected for serology and histopathology. And last, collect the pectoral flippers. These have really important information. You can collect it unfrozen for later interpretation of each class by X-rays. Important, remember to label each bag with the case identification and date. And here is a more complete list of samples that we can collect. For example, teeth, we can use it for life history and the maximum decomposition code is 5. The skin, we can collect for DNA, for microbiology, for histology, and the maximum decomposition code in this case is 3, and so on. Some of the samples are blubber, muscle, blood, eye fluid, eye, respiratory swabs, digestive swabs, external parasites, and scapula. And here are some samples that we can use it for microbiology and histology mainly. The maximum decomposition code in these cases are 3. Those samples are tonsils, lung, lymph nodes, heart, liver, pancreas, kidney, spleen, first stomach, and second stomach. For contaminants, we can use liver and for parasitology also. And kidney is another sample that we can use for contaminants. Stomach content can be used for life history. Stomach content, intestine, feces, testicle, ovaries, milk, placenta, fetal tissues, mammary gland, and brain can be used for microbiology studies. Contaminant could be performed studies of contaminants using placenta and fetal tissues. And for histology, you can use intestines, testicle, ovaries, placenta, fetal tissues, mammary gland, and brain. For parasitology, you can use stomach content, intestine, and feces. And now let's talk about communication. How to crowd management. Well, we can cordon an area with stakes, ropes, and fencing to deter entry, but such symbolic barriers cannot be enforced without legal authority. Warn the public of the risk of approaching or handling a stranded animal, including physical injury, strain, bites, hypothermia, and possible disease transmission. What for we need the crowd management? First, to reduce disrupted noise and chaos, to prevent accidents, to avoid further stress and injury to the animals, and allow the team to proceed with its works. Explain your actions. How? Well, clearly explain the intent procedures so the actions are properly interpreted. Keep the public informed of any variation from the expected plan to avoid confusion. Maintain always professionalism. Careless remarks and inappropriate jokes reflects a callous attitude towards both the animal distress and the team effort. Squabbling over procedures and sampling trivialize the importance of the operation and creates a poor impression. How to explain euthanasia? Most people accept the need to end pain and suffering humanely when no other option exists. The public and many team members may be unaccustomed to euthanasia procedures and respond with question and alarm if they are unprepared. The investigator responsibility is to explain in clear detail the need for this action, how it will be performed, and possible complications. Be sympathetic to people concerned and emotion. Be prepared for media relations. The media may be recording your every move. Strandings make excellent news items. The story of a nearly mystical creature trapped in a perilous setting. For some, it may be the sole source of information of marine mammals and stranding events. The event can grow from a local report to one of incredible proportions. The more information we can provide, the more accurate the coverage will be, and in turn, the greater the educational value and benefit to the Stranding Network. Who needs to talk? The Stranding Network Media Coordinator is the heart of the operation. How to be prepared? Develop strategies for providing information to the public, educate staff and volunteers on how to interact with the media, provide the media with up-to-date material, including press kits, maintain a phone list of key staff and press contacts, plan consistent coverage of stranded events. Take the initiative to contact the press and keep them informed with information that is consistent and readable. Maintain a good working relationship by avoiding unreasonable demand and being cooperative. Do not expect the press to appeal for volunteers and equipment during an event. Make them aware that you expect reporters to identify themselves and to minimize disturbance and interference on the site. The media coordinator is responsible for providing substantial, accurate information, thus avoiding a distorted story based on speculation and opinion. Neither the team leader nor other members will have the time or information to assume this role and must defer questions when approached. Specify the times and location of regular press briefings to be given by the designated media spokesperson, and include at least one of the investigator scientists on a predetermined schedule to satisfy the inevitable search for better answers. Conflicting views are unavoidable and can be presented to the media as a normal part of scientific inquiry. Avoid public arguments. The Stranding site is not a place to try to resolve differences of opinion. Media representatives will appreciate the name and phone numbers of other experts in the field if they choose to pursue that story in more depth. Beach etiquette. Team members, consumed by the enthusiasm and fatigue, easily forget that the motel staff are not accustomed to dealing with a cluttered room and messy guests. No one appreciates the sight of a bloody footprints while dining in their favorite family restaurant. Caution all personnel to respect the sensitivity of local residents and business. Such courtesies will go a long way towards securing a base of support for future operations in that area. Always is important to thanks. A firm note of thanks will keep the public and media trust and support, hard-earned through the event. Let them know the value of their participation and the outcome of the effort. Make a point of personally thanking the local community. And now let's talk where to find further resources and who to contact for advice. The book on the left is probably one of the oldest and most important guidebooks for marine mammal stranding. It's called The Marine Mammal Ashore, and all the stranding networks should have it. In the case of the document on the right, it was developed by the Tasmanian government and described very well how to act in each of the situations during stranding. The document on the left was developed by ACWAMS and ASCOAN, and it described the best practice on cetacean postmortem investigation and tissue sampling. The one on the right is a guidelines for a coordinated cetacean stranding response during mortality events caused by infection agents and harmful algal blooms. The document on the left was developed by the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group. It is face-to-face with the beach whale. It's a guidelines for the welfare of live stranded cetacean. The document on the right is the Marine Mammal Necropsy. It's an introductory guide for the stranding responders and field biologists. It was developed by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. The document on the left is the most complete compiled information on marine mammal medicine, and the one on the right is the Marine Mammals of the World, which is a comprehensive guide for their identification. In the SPARRAC website, you can find the list and contact of Caribbean stranding experts. You also can find the best field guides and recommendations for the stranding response to download. Also, you can find the stranding response training resources to download or watch online, and all of them are available for free in English, Spanish, and French. Here are some other really good websites where you can find another amount of information. For example, the Global Marine Animal Stranding Toolkit, the Global Stranding Network website, the Marine Mammal Management Toolkit, and the Humpback Whale Virtual Necropsy. And now we're going to talk about Bada App. This is an application for smartphones that promotes citizen participation in the generation of warnings and reports of marine mammal strandings through mobile and web applications. This was developed to facilitate the process of notification to the authorities and provide a means for the civilian population to enrich these notices with relevant information about the stranding. More information is available at this link. And then you have the Dolphin and Whale 911. This app allows you to report live or dead stranded, injured, or tangled marine mammal by connecting you to that nearest stranding response hotline so that the trained responders and veterinarians can help the animal. This app was developed for the use in the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii,
as well as Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands and Pacific Island territories. These help to rescue live and dead marine mammals by providing you with a list of do's and don'ts or tips on what to do when you find a live or dead stranded marine mammal. Finally, you get a whale scale. This app is intended for estimating the weight of a stranded cetacean in order to inform decision making during management of stranded events. This app should only be used by those with proper training, as working around the stranded marine mammals can be dangerous.
And here are the references that we use to create this presentation. Thank you for your attention.